Hi everyone. So I wanted to show you this thing that I got for drawing, which I've really enjoyed using, and it's this is called a blackboard. It's by a company called Boogie Board, and I think the technical term for it is a liquid crystal paper drawing board, or a liquid crystal paper drawing pad. Now, here I'm just gonna let you actually see what this ink looks like. There we are, and you can kind of see it from different angles. The reflections are going to be really, really strong. Okay, and then you can click this button, and it disappears. And it also has a safety switch, which prevents the erasing of this. So this covers a range of drawing which I didn't have. I didn't have a tool for that, and I'll go into depth about that later. But this thing cost about $45 US, and I got mine. I live in Canada, so I got mine off of in Best Buy, and yeah, you can get it from Boogie. Like you can order direct from Boogie Board. You can get them from Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and I believe Staples and Best Buy has them. And yeah, they're about $45 US. Although I think if you're in the UK, they cost a whole lot more unless you can get somebody to ship you one from the US. So yeah, I should probably talk a bit about some of the caveats of this demonstration video, and one of those things is the web camera setup. This is going to be the most important thing because how the thing looks is probably going to be extraordinarily, one of the most important things to you. And so one thing about my camera setup is that while I went in there and I manually adjusted all the settings as best I could to give you a good representative idea of how things look. I've tried to make it match with so that what the video is recording, what the camera is recording is as close as possible to what I am seeing. But the one thing is that the reflections look extremely strong because of the web camera. When I look at it with my own eyes, natural organic eyes, I don't see the reflections nearly as bad, but the web camera is going to greatly exacerbate the reflections that you see. I've turned off all the automatic settings. So when you look at a monitor, you know that the monitor reflection does not bloom out like that, right? That is the web camera doing that bloom. So web cameras are going to greatly enhance the reflections of this. So I must say that is the only thing that I could not account for. I'm very sorry for that. So, all right. So I'm also not a paid reviewer or anything like that. I went and I got this thing of my own volition and paid with my own money. And so, I'm not being paid by the company to advertise for this, even though I am recommending the product. So why would you want to get one of these things? I've got a Cintiq. Why would I need one of these things? I've got a sketchbook, and with a fountain pen. And why would I ever want one of these things? Well, the thing is that I've reached this point in my life, in my artistic career, where now I can draw really, really well, and I won't stand for having, I won't post art if I don't like it. I think some people will post everything that they draw. I will not post everything that I draw. Instead, I only post the stuff that I really, feel proud of. The stuff that I think is representative, the stuff that meets my standards, and pretty much anything that doesn't meet my standards for being released to the public, I relegate to the dustbin. Also, that means that whenever you do a lot of sketching, if you're doing a lot of stuff with a sketchbook, you're going to be cranking out a lot of stuff that builds up like toxic waste. If you're doing a lot of exercises and you're doing your practice stuff, you're going to be generating I have like sketchbooks and sketchbooks of practice exercises and all my old drawings, which I have in a cardboard box somewhere, and yeah, they're basically they build up like toxic waste. And it is nice to be able to just say goodbye to a drawing. Sometimes you need that disposability. This thing is perfect for it. So it is what's happened. The way that this liquid crystal paper stuff works is that there are two transparent electrodes, and kind of like what you'll find in an LCD screen or an e-ink reader, rather. This thing is closer to an e-ink reader than anything else. It doesn't have any like special logical circuitry in there. There's no computers inside this thing. There's no microchips. Instead, what happens is that there is this liquid crystal, which I guess you could say that the liquid crystal is all aligned vertically like this, and it allows light to just pass straight through. And we're seeing a plastic black backing. You can interchange the backings on this thing, and it's in a see-through state right now. And as I apply any pressure from the stylus that comes with it, it causes that liquid crystal to smash down, to flatten out, and then it becomes reflective, right? Because not so reflective, very reflective. And so any pressure, fingernails will do this. Your knuckle, if you push hard and kind of hard enough to be uncomfortable, you can leave marking on the thing. You can leave smudges if you push particularly hard. If I just like touch it, it's not a problem. My palm never creates any problems. I think if I push hard enough to be uncomfortable, which means I'm not just resting naturally, then it will leave a marking. I guess if my fingernail here can contact it and I push hard enough, it will leave a marking. So just keep that in mind. I guess if you wore like a glove, one of those Wacom gloves, then you won't run that risk. But for the most part, it's pretty good. If you lose the stylus and you have I can use a Wacom stylus, and it will work. The Wacom, oh my goodness! Not only does it work, my Cintiq actually picked the thing up through the tablet. So yeah, you can use a Wacom stylus on this thing. And yeah, it's like any old pressure will work. It's kind of funny how I'm actually hitting undo and redo because I'm so used to having things set up like this. So yeah, any pressure will make it do this. And I'm going to just to give you a good idea of how bright that color is, I'm going to make a nice solid patch of this stuff. So I'm just scrubbing in a really solid patch. And then there, now you can kind of see it. You get an idea of how bright or dark it is. And of course, the lighting angle does matter. And I find that when the light is coming from an angle, like from kind of slightly from this oblique angle. So if you're outdoors, this thing becomes way more visible. This thing seems to respond very well to light from the side. And that's a good thing because you don't want light. You want light to be coming from behind you and then, blasting a reflection back in your face. You want light to be coming in from the sides, and that will tend to make the this thing show up a lot more. And as you can see, it's a kind of a greenish green on black, and it is a bit silvery, it's a bit of a silvery reflection. And of course, at any point, you can just click this button. It sends a jolt of electricity through it, and it clears it. And they say it'll last about 5 years, which is probably, I don't know, by the time your battery starts leaking, that's when you need to replace it. So it really, really it's very economical when it comes to the battery. And, 2032, those are like the kinds of batteries that you'll use in one of those like flat remotes. Now, as for the stylus, it's a metal bodied stylus. They have a trough on this thing. Actually, hang on, let me get my notes so I don't lose track of things. Okay. So, it's got a metal pen trough, which has been magnetized, and your pen will just stick right there. The clip on this thing has been made such that you can just click it back there, and there's a little detent in the back, like that. And while we're looking at the back of this thing, you can see that I've gone and stuck a bunch of Scotch tabs on there, and what that does is that prevents this thing from slipping out and falling out. So I've just put them in these little areas here to retain the board. And as you can see, yeah, they come with different inserts, and I just chose the black one, and you can slide them in and out. And yeah, if you want, you can put a piece of paper in there for tracing. Not that I do such a terrible, heinous act. It has rubberized strips here, which stick out just a little bit, and that allows you to put that on. It makes it so it grips better on a tabletop. And their strips are also on here and here. They're nice and wide, and they do a pretty good job of gripping it and keeping it in place. It's very light. It's extremely light, and yet quite rigid. So that's it's about. It feels like a clipboard. It's about as rigid as a clipboard. It's just slightly flexible, just a little bit of give, very lightweight. But I think it's good enough. It'll do. And there are 3 controls on the side. The big one is for the erasure. This left one here. So if I pull that stylus out and draw a bunch, if I hit that, boom, gone in a flash. And then there is the locking switch. So if I put the locking switch where the little red thing shows up, now it's locked, and I can click that. Nothing will happen. It locks out these other 2 buttons. Now, there. Now, when it comes to price, this is the most expensive option. Well, aside from the sync. But this is probably the most expensive option that you can go for in terms of the tablets. And it is the only one I know of that actually has this erasing button. And this erasing function is not perfect. It is flawed, and I'll go into that later. So something I can say about this thing is, yeah, this is the most expensive option, and yet when I talk about the range of things that where it covers a niche, well, you might not have or want to buy a full-fledged iPad Pro with the pencil. And this thing, $45 US, that's pretty good. It's very advantageous. The fact that it uses direct pressure to do the drawing is kind of nice in that there's no software to boot up. So there's no distraction. This thing poses absolutely no distraction whatsoever. You can't answer emails or anything like that. You can't. It is a dedicated instrument, and it doesn't generate any heat. It means that you can draw with this thing flat in bed and not worry about the thing overheating like you would with an iPad Pro. Now, iPad Pro, you can certainly go and finish off drawings, and you can push things further and do full-on digital stuff, just as you can with a Cintiq, but these things generate heat, and they're not very, I don't know. I don't know if I honestly do not know how much heat the iPad Pro generates, but I don't think I'd want to leave that thing on its back in bed. So this thing is really good for bedtime drawings, and also it's very good for drawing when you're taking a shit. Yeah, it's good because, it's waterproof and all that. I don't know about this part here though. Okay, but you know what? And if anything, don't get water on it if you can avoid it. But I think that if a little bit of water spatter hits the front, it's not going to be a big deal. Now, this thing has this eraser function. You're probably dying to know about how that works. So I have miscalibrated this thing on purpose. You can see how I can cause the image to fade. I went and I set the setting like really, really, really high. And so what I can do is I can use this. I could draw my rough underdrawing like this. And then if I want, I can fade the drawing like that. So I've cranked up the erasing function like crazy, so I can fade my drawing back, and now I can use that, right? I can go in there and I can draw over top of that. I can fade the drawing. So I use this as a knockback function. So you can draw and then knock back your rough drawing. And I like the fact that it's immediate. There's no lag whatsoever. So that's what I use the erasing function for. And I'll talk about the calibration, the concept of calibrating this thing. So here, if I wanted to calibrate this thing, it has 12 levels of strength. And at the low end of strength, what you're doing is you're working through a range of this erasing strength. At the low end of the strength, it's only going to kind of smudge. It's not really going to be a very functional eraser. At the very high end of erasing things, it does exactly what you saw it did. It's a flawed erasing system that goes and it will kind of start to overall do this fading, but your eraser becomes more effective. The way in which you calibrate it is you're supposed to draw, you're supposed to put in the numbers 1 through 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then what you do is, actually, before you do that, I have to reset the eraser by pressing this button, the erasing button, and clicking it. That resets it to the first level. Then you write your numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you do this just to keep track. All right. So if I hold down this button and click it, it has reset the erasing. And now you can use the eraser on the back. I don't. I use the tip. And I just erase that. And I don't let go of this button. So you can see it's pretty much just smudging it. I click it again. Now it's on strength 2. It's kind of smudging. And then we click it again. This is strength 3, strength 4, strength 5, strength 6, strength 7, and so on and so forth. And you basically just, keep going through until you're satisfied with the level of erasure. At strength 9, it does a pretty good job, but as you can see, the rest of the numbers have faded. And when you let go, it comes back a teeny bit. So at strength 9 is pretty good. I can just barely see a little bit of it. In fact, here, let me lift it up, and there you are. There you are. Now you can see it. All right, so now you get an idea And of course, as you can see, the other numbers have faded off as the strength increased. So the thing is that if you know exactly what strength you want, in my case, I actually like strength 10. I'm going to just hold the button down and click this 1, 2, 3, 4. You got to give it time. Don't mash it really, really fast. You got to give it time. Don't go hold it down and go bang, 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 bang. Like, don't do it like that. Now, the other thing is that while I like the stylus, the feel of the stylus, I don't know why, but they chose to make the tip black. And I've noticed, and so I went in there and I took a bit of paint and I went and I painted the tip white. And then I just drew on some wood to get rid of some paint on the tip. And that solved the problem. But I don't know why it is. There are other knockoff versions of the Boogie Board. And for some reason or other, every time I see a stylus, the damn thing is black. They're drawing with, it's a black drawing implement on a black drawing surface is just not very intelligent. At least with the white, right? When you see this, the fact that I painted it white, you can see the after image as I draw. You can see the after image of the circle that I'm drawing, and I can actually aim where I'm drawing now. So it gives me a suitable amount of precision. I can actually tell where the hell my lines are going to go down. And if you press very, very lightly, you can get very, very fine lines. In fact, just barely touching it is enough to get you a thin line. So it's pretty well set up. The pressure response is quite nice. If I push harder, though, I can get thicker lines. And it does this quite well. And I find that if you're moving really fast and pushing really hard, your lines will fade out. So I find that it's kind of time dependent. It means that if you're drawing and you move slowly, you're going to get thick lines. So you can almost think of it like a felt tip marker. Even though it feels very hard, it's kind of like a felt tip marker in that the ink kind of takes time to saturate into the page. But if you move too fast, then the ink's not going to be able to saturate the page fast enough and get you a dark line. So I kind of like this, that if I just move quickly, relatively quickly, I can get thin lines. And also if I apply just the minimum, the barest amount of pressure, I can get pretty good thin pencil-like strokes. And then if I need a bolder line, I can move slower. But I find that the thick lines tend to be a little bit more fuzzy. And of course, I don't usually put this thing on top of my Cintiq and draw like this. Usually I'm taking a dump and I'm using this thing to draw. Or I will draw while this thing, like in bed, or you can use it to draw while you're at the dinner table or anything like that. So that's why I like it. It's got that. So I think that probably gives you a pretty good example, a pretty good understanding of what this thing's good for. Use it for your practice exercises. Use it for when you are just doing lots and lots and lots of this stuff, and you don't want to use up you don't want to use up your drawing materials, you don't want to use up paper. You've just got dumb ideas, crazy ideas, things that you would never commit to paper, things that you don't want to have a finished hard copy, or some hard copy that you want to leave for other people to find, right? Like sometimes if you want to draw lewd drawings and then later erase it, great, that's why this thing is great, because you can hit it and it's gone. But yeah, for practice purposes and for those times where you just, you don't want the pressure of having made a bad drawing, this thing's great. Oh, right, another thing I should mention, the bezels, the top and bottom bezels, these things here, it's quite a ridge on them. There's kind of a ridge. Your hand's going to bang into it. If you hold it vertically, if you set it up in a vertical orientation, the problem's not so bad. It's pretty good, right? And I would say that the bezel on the edge there, it's a little bit. Not too bad, but it's definitely there. You'll notice it to have a little bit of the side bezel. But I guess It's too bad because like when I feel like a Wacom tablet, like they eventually learned, you know, that no one wants to actually feel a ridge. You can barely feel it here. It's pretty. It's quite flush. They did a good job when it comes to Wacom tablets these days. But yeah, I think that is a bit of a shortcoming, having that bezel when it comes to a drawing for someone who's going to use it for art. So yeah, I guess that's pretty thorough. And yeah, talk to you guys later. Hope you learned something.